Good morning, everybody, or I should say good afternoon in some parts of the country. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. I am Sonia Llewellyn, the National Director of HR Services here at 501c Services, and I am really excited about today. Our guest speaker is Irwin Batara, and he's going to talk to us today about cultivating a culture of equity in our organizations and hopefully beyond our organizations and into the communities that we live in. Well, a little bit about Irwin. I've known Irwin for, at least 5 or 6 years now. Irwin is an active volunteer. He's a trustee for our 501c Agencies Trust Board. So he and about 12 other people represent the needs and concerns of our trust members. And we are delighted to have Irwin not only on our board, but presenting today because he is an expert in his field and a long-time HR professional. And Irwin, thank you for joining us. And thank you for helping us work through what's going on in the world right now in this area.
Okay, great. So good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Irwin Batara. I've been in the human resources field for over 30 years and have been a consultant in DEI work since probably about 2015 or so. And I have worked in the various community organizations, mostly in nonprofit and social service and healthcare services, including neighbor care, most recently with YWCA as well, Seattle King Snohomish County, and then Seattle Indian Health Board, and also International Community Health Services. So I have vast experience within human resources, but also I'm very, very active in community work and doing a lot of volunteer work for various nonprofits. And I've been a speaker with the University of Washington and also with Seattle University as well, and various other community colleges around Seattle area. And glad to be here today to talk about DEI, and hopefully this is something that we can learn from each other from.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for us to dig in. Just want to cover a few things before I turn it totally over to Irwin. We want this to be interactive. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I will be monitoring the questions that come in and want you to know that what happens here stays here. So if you want to ask a question, I will not be sharing your name or organization. So please participate. And we want this to be relevant and helpful to each and every one of you. This is certified for HRCI and SHRM credits. There will be a survey that'll pop up afterwards. You may get an email thanking you for attending, and it, I believe, is embedded within that thank you. There's a place to click to go and fill out the very, very short survey that is required by HRCI and SHRM in order to give out the certification credits. So everybody's muted, but again, please participate. And I think we're ready to rock and roll, Irwin.
Okay, great. So this particular presentation that I'm doing today is concentrating on cultivating culture of equity and transitioning from an HR to people and equity mindset. Next. So again, welcome everybody, and today we'll explore the transition from a traditional HR mindset to a people and equity mindset, highlighting key policies and practices to foster a more inclusive workplace. Next. So there's always the question of why the why. The first thing is that it is the right thing to do. What is your organizational mission? Likelihood that nonprofits' general mission belong to communities that have the least power in our society or are invisible. there are some business cases on this as well. Why do you create a culture of equity within your organization? Employees with a strong sense of belonging report 56% higher level of overall job satisfaction, 50% also lower risk of turnovers. And employees who feel they belong take 75% fewer sick leave as well. So there is a business case on this, and employees are more satisfied, productive, and committed when they bring their whole selves to work. Diversity increases productivity, problem solving, and also creativity. And all employees have to be activated to believe these are our organizational norms and expectation. Next.
So, Irwin, are you saying that I'm concerned with all the things that we've heard in the news in the last year or two? We were making, I think, some positive forward movement. Is DE&I and race and social justice still alive?
My answer with that would be, I guess it depends on where you are. But within I know that it's growing leaps and bounds in certain areas and fields, especially in social service and also within healthcare. It is still true today that when folks are asking for different funding requirements, a lot of the funders will usually require that you are doing some form of DEI within your organization. So especially healthcare these days, it is a continued type of studies that they do, that it is connected. Any sort of studies, for instance, that goes with issues where minorities or persons of color, for instance, are being impacted with their healthcare. There's a lot of studies that's going on right now that social determinants of health, for instance, is connected to how somebody's health will progress. And a lot of the studies right now is being connected with that, especially with DEI work. And so a lot of the funders are requiring these days that you connect all of these as well. So at this point, I would say that in certain parts of the country, I know that there are some laws that have eliminated DEI practice and so forth. And because of that, also, there's also been a large movement on the part of chief diversity officers and so forth, where they have left organizations because they're not really fully getting the support that they need from the organization to keep that program going.
Great, thank you. I know it's a big thing. I was chatting with a coworker this morning about the challenges that she faces as a person of color within the healthcare system. So. Right.
Thanks for that question. So on this next slide, what type of organization do we aspire to be? One of the things that is very, very important is connecting the shared values. What type of culture do we really want? How do we normalize, for instance, talking about these issues? How do we institutionalize the language and processes? Everyone has to start with the same language. Are all lenses and viewpoints allowed? Who you are and how you show up. What are you going to do about it? So these are certain questions that folks should be asking. And you can go, for instance, about doing all of this by making sure that you guys have common languages, when you're starting these types of programs within your organization. Are you developing leadership? Are you talking, for instance, about gatekeeping issues? Are you talking, for instance, about learning from history? Are you maintaining two-way accountability, not only holding your staff accountable, but also making sure that you're accountable to the communities that you serve? And are you sharing culture within your organization that allows folks to feel like they're included within your organization as well?
Can you expand a little bit on gatekeeping?
Sure. So gatekeeping is basically the control of resources within an organization. And a lot of times people mistake that they're not gatekeepers. But the reality is everybody is a gatekeeper, from front desk all the way up to the CEO. And the biggest gatekeeper are usually the human resources folks. And a lot of that mainly is because we do a lot of not only hiring, but developing people, but also termination as well. And so we have a lot of power, and ensuring that when we're doing this type of work, that we are aware of that power, of making sure that gatekeeping is something that is always in our mind. Like a good example on this is that people don't assume because you're a front desk person or a patient services rep, for instance, that you don't have any power. But that person has the ability to actually bring in individuals within your organization, or allow, for instance, for folks to be able to uh, get on various appointments with medical providers and so forth. And so gatekeeping is just being aware that you do have certain powers that allows individuals to certain resources that are needed. And so every time you are aware of that, then if you have that analysis of that DEI analysis, then it tells you, oh, okay, well, this individual might need more than what they regularly need. Is this something, for instance, that we can help them a little bit more of? It doesn't stop, for instance, on what are the regular requirements.
Right.
You know, there are certain things that you can do. Great example, another great example on this is that family medical leave issues, for instance, in human resources. There are times when the 12 weeks is up and you know, individuals still have not set up their babysitting or what have you. And so some of the things that I go around with on some of these family medical leave issues is that, you know, can we create a soft landing for this individual so that they don't have to come back full time? Can we make arrangements, for instance, within that department that allows them to be able to come in at part-time basis until such time that this person can actually come on full time? And that usually helps the individual, and it helps the organization as well.
Well, it's a great way to engage with
Yes,
something that somebody needs that's very specific to them. Thank
that's
you.
correct.
Thank you for
Yep.
that.
Next. Okay, so what I always say is that DEI work, it's all about community work. It starts with community. How do you build this community? You know, first of all, you have to free your mind, listen for understanding, and then also for intent versus impact. What are your intentions and what are the impacts that allow you to make sure that you build these communities? Are we being authentic? Are we recognizing and examining bias systems and processes? And it's okay to be uncomfortable when you're doing this work. I mean, you can't really actually learn from these new items unless you are uncomfortable at times. And anything new that we always look at, there's always a sense of comfort level that we have not been there before. And so you need to free your mind that allows you to be able to learn what DEI is all about. Okay, next. So you also need to align your organizational values to EDI work. You know, a lot of them is, you know, two-way accountability. Okay, are you being accountable also to the communities that you serve? A lot of times what happens is that we get our master's degrees and we're very idealistic and we're gonna put on our, you know, what we learned at the universities, and we are better than what the community does. And a lot of times that doesn't work very well. And the main reason for that is that, you know, who knows more what's going on in the communities than the community members themselves. And so it's really, really good to be humble and understand that communities already are trying to get out of their situation or improve their situations. And so you have to be accountable to them as well, as individuals who are trying to help that community. Leadership development is another part. A lot of times what ends up happening is that when we choose our board members, for instance, especially in nonprofit, a lot of times because of as a nonprofit organization, what we end up doing are individuals that can write checks. And I understand that as a nonprofit, but we also need to make sure that the board members are fully developed in terms of their DEI analysis. And then also we need to make sure that the DEI and anti-oppression work, anti-racism work has to be part of the values in making sure that we align the organizational values to EDI work. Okay, next. So one of the things that is real difficult for people is operationalizing what DEI work is all about, and how do we create, for instance, various initiatives that would work for everybody. And a lot of times, I always say, try to remember 3 or 4 things, or even 5 things, because you can go ahead and actually progress a little bit better if it's a simple type of initiatives. And in doing DEI, when you're setting up goals, one of the items that the first thing that you need to do is there has to be a commitment to changing the culture of the organization. Okay, so that's basically change management, and there has to be leadership buy-in, include commitment by every employee and or board to work EDI, inclusion, and DEI projects. Using racial equity toolkit to develop policies. This has been probably one of the biggest progressions that we've had in organizations that I've belonged to. When policies and procedures are developed, it's usually a top-down approach in most organizations. And a lot of times that will not work. You need to make sure that you include individuals, not only from managers and directors, but also the people that are being impacted by these policies as well. And the more you can get individuals from not only various classifications of staffing, but also various types of backgrounds, such as race, it allows you to fully develop a policies and procedures that works for everybody and not just something that is top down. And so some of the things that I've done is create a committee that allows you to study and also see the impacts of various policies that are about to be brought up. And individuals are allowed to go ahead and make sure that they can have their opinions are heard, and also again making sure that the impact on those individuals with these policies are really checked out, because a lot of times when you set out a policy, there's unintended effects that happens, and you want to make sure that this policy is actually something in which it allows for folks to be able to really study before it is implemented as a policy.
So I want to ask the group to share with us. So how many of you in your organizations have either committees or have instituted any of these things to build on your equity, inclusion, and diversity efforts? We'd love to hear from you all. So Irwin, please go on, and then as soon as people finish their input, I will share.
Okay, great. So the other thing that has helped, I've been doing EDI work since 2007, but unofficially, for instance, with different organizations like Seattle Indian Health Board, and also International Community Health Services, which has a target population of Asian Pacific Islanders, a lot of times what happens is that it is not normalized to talk about race and so forth and how we're doing anti-racist or anti-oppression work. What ends up happening at times is that, HR comes in and they say you shouldn't talk about these politics issues regarding politics and so forth. But the reality of it is that the populations that we serve are talking about it. And so normalizing that as much as possible within the workplace actually does help in moving forward a lot of your EDI initiatives or DEI initiatives. And also creating caucuses or affinity groups to work on issues related to anti-oppression work. And this usually helps with inclusive practices within your workplace. And it also allows for individuals to be able to be themselves in the workplace as well. The next goal that I always say is you need to train the staff on anti-racism or DEI work. A lot of this has got to do with making sure that it is normalized at work in terms of talking about it. UIR training, it's Undoing Institutional Racism training is one of the premier trainers within the country. And they have them in different states as well. And so they provide really, really good training. And it's 3 days of training. And one of the things that I've learned from that training is that once you get trained on it, you can never really turn it off in terms of allowing you to really look at the issues that's related to unjust issues and so forth. How do you rewrite, for instance, various policies, or how do you rewrite development projects that allows you to include some things within your organization. The other thing is trauma-informed care training as well. This has been big within the last couple of years, especially within the healthcare organizations, and also actually social service organizations are starting to bring that up as well. Neurodivergent training, this is more with the disabilities. This is also getting big. It started out in Europe and has gone into Canada, and now it's actually starting to get some headway here in the United States. But neurodivergent training is another area where for a long time when folks are talking about inclusive issues, the disability individuals have always been in the back part of understanding what diversity is all about. And so neurodivergent training is another item that folks can start doing as well. And then another goal would be connect with a partner with other like-minded agencies to do the work. And chances are within your areas, there's probably some organizations that have a DEI initiative. And when you have individuals that are doing that, you can create best practice items that allows you to bring in, for instance, different trainers from all over the country or in your area. And then the last part usually, which is the part that's usually the last goal, because it's the most difficult, because you have to keep making sure that you've done the first 3 goals, is partner with different organizations, national leaders, for instance, on DEI, anti-racism, and anti-oppression work are real good partners with national leaders across the country that allows you to actually forward your work a little bit more and become more effective. Okay.
So I wanted to let you know we've got some amazing responses here.
Okay.
And so one of the questions was that they include staff, well, that's not a question, but they include staff in all major decisions. another organization has an established DEI and A initiative and a group of staff that push those efforts forward to the whole. Another organization is doing many of the things that are on your list. That's great. Somebody asked a question, are the resources for training available to share? So that's definitely a question for you, Irwin. And like the equity, the racial equity toolkit and neurodivergent training. So I think they're asking for more information on that, and maybe that's something that we can follow up on after the training.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. Another organization says that they are working to ensure that DEIA is embedded throughout their organization in all programs, administration, and operations. This is pretty exciting. Sorry, I'm scrolling down here to get the rest of them. I'm not going to, unfortunately, we don't have time to read them all, but this is really amazing.
Yeah.
We're a disability-related nonprofit. We incorporate anti-racism, anti-oppression into our staff trainings. Our staff work directly with families, use community brokers and other partners to fully understand and implement meaningful DEI work. It isn't a separate checkbox. Great, that is good. Because that's not what we want. We don't want to just check the box. It's ingrained in their culture, organizational culture. So, and of course, it's an ongoing work in progress. Lots of really good information here and lots of good discussion, and I'm really impressed.
Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing that. I do agree. A lot of times what ends up happening when you're doing a DEI, EDI, anti-racist initiative is that, a lot of people see it as separate work. And, we need to make sure that everybody does the work, are held accountable to it, to make sure that there's actual movement within this actual initiative. And a lot of times also people do not understand that even our finance people, our development people, marketing individuals, especially all individuals that are usually on the administrative side. The first time I was doing this back in 2007, I still remember certain folks that are basically saying, you know what, that's program work. And I had argued with them left and right that there are policies that allows for individuals to do the work. And you can also do it in a way that you can do partnerships, for instance, with different departments as well. To give you an example, back in, give you a little story real quick. Sorry, Sonia.
No, that's great. Personalization is always good.
In this one organization that I worked at, as you all know, during the pandemic, it was very, very difficult to get everybody to come into work and then also feel like they're safe, and rightly so. And so one of the things that we also saw was that all of our frontline and front-facing individuals were the ones that were making the most sacrifices. In a social service setting, we needed to make sure that a lot of folks were, doing the work, but we were also supporting them. So what we did was HR and development team, and then also the finance team got together, and the development team was the first one that said, okay, Irwin, what do we need to do to make sure that we help our front-facing individuals? And so they had said they can probably try to get a grant, because the counties at the time and the cities were not really helping, with hazard pay and so forth. And so the development team ended up convincing a pretty big donor for about $500,000, which is unheard of at that time. And what we ended up doing was we said, okay, let's talk with finance. What can we do and not do? to make sure that we're compliant with the IRS and so forth. But how do we make sure that we do this from the lens of DEI? And so what we did was we all got together along with the program folks as well, and also with the, like I said, the development team and the finance team and then human resources. And we said, okay, let's do a needs analysis. Who has the most needs within these individuals so that we can actually impact them so that they can get hazard pay. And so what ended up happening with that was we did that analysis based on need. And of course, we had individuals that were single mothers, or even in some cases, single grandparents, single grandmothers who were taking care of their kids, and ended up investing with these individuals so that they can get help in terms of childcare. They can get help also within their finances. And so the needs analysis that we did was based on individuals, not only financial needs, but also circumstance that allows them, for instance, that got more money if you're a single mother, all the way to individuals that receive less amount. And so there were tiered amounts that we gave to these individuals. And that was a really, really good practice of DEI work where you included everybody, such as development, finance, and HR. You don't have to do it alone. You can also look at ways where you can impact individuals to get hazard pay, was what we did. So that's a little bit of story.
Well, it shows you, that's a great example of trying to immediately meet the needs of those who need it the most.
Okay.
So, quick question on what is UIR training?
It's called UIR training is Undoing Institutional Racism Training. And
institutional racism training. Okay.
Yeah, and that's been around actually since the 1970s. And so a lot of folks didn't know that. And in fact, our organization at the time, we actually ended up winning this UIR type of award because of certain works that we've done with our communities and so forth. And so we were very blessed in getting that, what it's called the Ron Chisholm Award, and it allows you to, it recognizes organizations that do great work in undoing institutional racism work. And so,
great, thank you. We had a couple questions on that, so thank you.
Great. Yep. So next, so best practice for EDI organizations is leadership commitment. Which is senior leadership should demonstrate a genuine commitment to DEI initiatives, embedding them into organizations' mission, vision, and values. Inclusive policies and practices, implementing inclusive policies and practices that address bias, discrimination, and inequities in all aspects of organization, including recruitment, hiring, promotion, and retention. Diverse representation, ensuring diverse representation at all levels of the organization, including leadership positions, to reflect the communities that we serve. Employee resource groups. These are sometimes affinity groups as well. Establish affinity groups to provide support, networking, and advocacy opportunities for underrepresented employees. And then training and education. Providing ongoing training and education on topics such as unconscious bias, cultural competency, and inclusive leadership to all employees. Next. So best practice included continuation of it, accountability and measurement, establishing clear goals, metrics, and accountability mechanisms to track progress, and hold leaders and employees accountable for DEI outcomes. Transparency and communication, communicating openly and transparently about DEI initiatives, progress, and challenges, and fostering really a culture of trust and accountability. Collaboration and partnerships, this is with external organizations, community groups, and stakeholders to leverage resources, share best practices, and advance collective DEI goals. Another item is employee engagement and feedback. This is very, very important. Actively engaging employees in DEI efforts, soliciting feedback, and incorporating employee perspectives into decision-making processes. Continuous improvement. This is committing to continuous learning, reflection, and improvement of DEI efforts, and adapting strategies based on feedback and also evolving best practices as well. By implementing these best practices, DEI organizations can create more inclusive and equitable workplaces where all employees will feel valued, respected, and empowered to succeed. Okay, next. Excuse me. So we also need to understand the shift as well. And you'll see what I mean in a second here. So the traditional HR mindset focuses on compliance and administrative tasks. Transitioning to a people and equity mindset means you're involving, prioritizing, and equity, inclusion, and diversity. It requires a shift in perspective from managing resources to valuing and investing people. Next slide. So employees in the past, and what I mean by that are individuals like myself and Sonia, work. A lot of times folks are probably familiar with this. Work fixed hours, for instance, from 9 to 5. Work was mainly done in the office. Hierarchical decision making was made, and long-term employment mindset. One specific skill or field, individuals stay within their organizations for a very, very long time, right? Yes. There's less emphasis on flexibility of work, simple technology for simple tasks and communications. There's also, you need to stay in your lane, focus on individual tasks and goals, and then also job descriptions that never changed. And we all know from a legal standpoint, we always need to be checking that from now on an annual basis to make sure that it's updated.
So there's also,
yes, collaboration was set on main teams and departments as well. That's the employees in the past. Next.
So we have a question.
Yes.
For you. Could you share best practices for monitoring all this, and what kinds of metrics are achievable? And could you share examples of dashboard or monitoring tools that you may have used?
So I could probably take another hour for that one. But generally speaking, you have to ask yourself questions. Are we doing equitable practices within our workplace? Is a good question to ask, and then you can create measurements from there. Great example on that is, what are promotion rates and who's being impacted by these promotion rates? Is it mostly people of color, for instance, that are being impacted by these rates of promotion? The other thing is, retention rates and termination rates. Are individuals leaving the organization within 3 months to 6 months? And who are these individuals that are leaving within 3 to 6 months? Also within your practice of discipline. Is your disciplinary process, for instance, is that being analyzed as well? This one organization that I was with, when we studied that, it was really telling about people of color, for instance, being impacted mostly by these types of disciplinary actions. A lot of times we can say, yes, we had legal backup to be able to terminate individuals. But one of the things that I usually emphasize within my human resources work is, ensuring that fair processes are going to be involved in making sure that bias issues are put aside when you're doing these types of practices. Hiring portion as well are different types of measurements that you can do in different places with that. And as far as also examining how your development team gets awarded or not awarded different types of funding. Why is that? Do you do an autopsy, for instance, as to why it is that they didn't get it, especially based on the DEI requirements that they had to do? Finance as well. There's all kinds of measurements that you can do with finance in terms of like, who are the individuals that are getting increases? Why is that? And be able to question that and allow for folks to really examine their processes and practices as well. I can go on that and talk forever about different types of measurements, but maybe that's something we can do in the future, Sonia. It's a separate issue. So.
I like that. So just to recap, it sounds like it can be as simple as setting up some Excel spreadsheets to track. I mean, that doesn't cost us anything but time, which I know is valuable. That's a very valuable commodity. But setting up some spreadsheets to track your hires, maybe, and some people have very sophisticated systems, some people don't, but tracking your hires, your disciplinary actions, your terminations or separations, and then looking, that's a pretty visual, you can look at it quickly and get an idea of where you are. That's a good place to start. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, exactly. And I think the other piece on this is that when you do track them, you also have to be purposeful in making sure that when you're tracking them, you also have the willingness to make these changes as well.
Right. Tracking doesn't do you any good if you're not going to act on the information on what you learn.
Exactly. And what ends up happening a lot of times is that, you do all of this, and what ends up happening is that you don't do anything about it, even though you found out some things. That usually will kill your DEI initiative, because
that's another session.
Yes. Yes, and employers need to be really careful at making sure that before you start out on these types of measurements, ask yourself, what are you trying to fix here? What is the purpose of this? And really be intent on making sure that you're going to be following through on some of these findings as well.
It's like anything you're going to do, engagement, or anything. It's like your policies. Don't put anything in your policies that you're not going to actually follow or act on. So
that's right.
Great. Thanks, Irwin.
Right. So this next area, employees of today, these are mostly go back. Okay, so employees of today, they are more results based. They work for work times, not 9 to 5. The other thing is there's no home base. They work from anywhere. There's still a lot of individuals that are remote based, and if you are like any other organizations, a lot of folks are still fighting that. And in terms of no home base, that's true of the younger folks. They can set up anywhere and actually do the work. There's more team input in decisions as well. These are certain things that they value quite a bit. More changing jobs for diverse experience. This was unheard of, for our generation, but a lot of folks are doing this more, mainly to make sure that they're gaining experience, but also for job satisfaction as well. Learning and applying a range of skills. Every time, probably within this last 2 years or so, where we've done interviews, and that's been one of their major questions. You know, do I have an opportunity to be fully developed in this organization? Is one of the questions that gets asked. Also, you know, this is a little controversial one, integrating personal life at work. There's a lot of folks that are actually wanting to have this happen as well, using AI and new technologies for better efficiencies as well. They're very, very good at all technology stuff, you know, and you can tell because a lot of these folks have had iPads since they were toddlers, and you know, they're very, very good at all of these technology advancements that have gone on. There's also emphasis on contributing to team success. Contributing is the word there that folks want to feel like they're contributing to the team success. And so that's something that needs to be applied. Changing roles to meet new challenges as well. You know, a lot of the younger folks, you know, they do want to have these types of new challenges. You know, they want to make sure that there's continual improvement in the things that they're doing, and somebody has to be telling them that as well. Working with diverse teams as well is very, very important to the younger folks. And a lot of that has got to do with, because, you know, that's the world that they've grown in. And a lot of times also, now that they're living on their own in their 20s, for instance, a lot of the younger folks are choosing to live in diverse communities as well. Okay. Next. Okay. What we mean by results-based work times, they ensure that flexible work schedules accommodate the diverse needs and responsibilities of employees, including those from marginalized communities who may face additional barriers to traditional work hours. And then also implementing policies that prioritize productivity and outcomes over strict adherence to traditional work hours, recognizing that different individuals may have different peak productivity times. No home base, I talked a little bit about that. Ensure that remote work opportunities are accessible to all employees regardless of their location or personal circumstances. Provide resources and support for remote workers to overcome potential barriers, such as access to technology, internet connectivity, and suitable workspaces and environments. When they're saying they want more team input in decisions, you must promote actually inclusive decision-making processes that actively solicit input and perspectives from all team members, ensuring that diverse voices are heard and valued, and then also implement strategies to mitigate power imbalances within the teams, such as rotating leadership roles and providing training on inclusive leadership practices. Next. So on the more changing jobs for diverse experience, encourage and support career mobility and job rotation opportunities for all employees, including those from underrepresented backgrounds, to gain diverse experience and skills. And also implement transparent and equitable processes for internal job postings and promotions, ensuring that opportunities for advancements are accessible to all employees. The learning and applying a range of skills provide equitable access to training and development opportunities for all employees, including those from marginalized communities, to acquire and apply a diverse range of skills. Implement strategies to address systemic barriers to skill development, such as mentorship programs, skill training subsidies, and career development pathways as well. So this integrating personal life at work, foster a culture that recognizes and respects the diverse personal identities and experiences of employees, including their cultural, familial, and also community affiliations. You also need to implement policies and practices that support work-life balance, such as flexible scheduling, parental leave, and remote work options to accommodate the diverse needs of employees. Next.
So I'd like to say that there are a lot of questions that are folks are dealing with. They're trying to provide flexible workplace situations.
Okay.
And I think sometimes our staff, who are obviously integral to what we all do in our organizations, some positions are going to be more adaptable to remote work than others. Obviously, if you're working with children or adults with challenges, you need to be with them and not working remotely and doing it virtually. Personally, if I want to see a physician, I don't want to do a telehealth call. I want the doctor to be physically present or my nurse to be physically present to take my blood pressure and things like that. But I think a lot here, Irwin, are struggling with providing that flexibility and dealing with the challenges of people who have to be at the work site every day versus the folks that have some flexibility in their positions to be able to work remotely. So there are feelings of resentment.
Sure.
And we can address this at the end because this is a huge area.
Right.
And I mean, there's probably 6 or so people who are asking for assistance there. So it's a hot button.
Sure.
Hot button issue.
Yep.
Okay. I just want to let everybody know that I see it.
Okay.
And I also want to give Irwin a chance to tell us more.
Yes. So using AI and new technologies for better efficiencies, ensure that the development and implementation of AI and new technologies prioritize equity, fairness, and accountability with mechanisms in place to mitigate biases and discriminatory outcomes. Promote diversity and inclusion in the technology sector by actively recruiting and supporting individuals from underrepresented groups in AI and technology roles. The emphasis on contributing to team success, foster a collaborative and supportive work environment where individual contributions are recognized and valued within the context of team success. Implement performance evaluation and processes, evaluation processes that assess both individual contributions and collaborative efforts. Ensuring that individuals and rewards are distributed equitably. And then also changing roles to meet new challenges. Proactively identify and address systemic barriers that may prevent employees, particularly those from marginalized communities, from transitioning into new roles or career paths. Provide support and resources for skill development, career planning, and mentorship to facilitate smooth transitions between roles and career trajectories. And also working with diverse teams. Promote inclusive team dynamics and communication practices that celebrate diversity and foster a sense of belonging for all team members. And then provide training and resources for effective cross-cultural communications, conflict resolution, and allyship to support collaboration within diverse teams as well. Now, by aligning each statement with anti-racist lens, we can ensure that organizational practices and policies promote equity, inclusion, and justice for all employees, contributing to a more just and equitable workplace culture. Okay, next. So some examples of people and equity policy practices: implementing pay equity. So ensuring pay compensation for employees regardless of gender, race, or other factors. This is something that a lot of individuals, for instance, try to resist. A lot of organizations try to resist pay equity issues. One of the items that has helped out quite a bit from my experience has been actually publicizing the actual salary structure within an organization. That may sound very, very controversial to a lot of HR folks, but the reality of it is that when folks see that you're being transparent about how individuals are getting paid, it allows for discussions, and it also allows for folks to really see where they are valued within the organization. And so I support this type of practice mainly because the transparency part allows for individuals to see where they are, and it also starts individuals to say and start thinking about career ladders. It allows for individuals, for instance, to say, you know what, I'm a front desk person right now, but I've seen Sonia do her work as an HR director. I want to be an HR director someday. Wow, look at where she's getting paid. There's got to be a way for me to find out how to get there. And so that's been a good practice that to me has been helpful, is publicizing the actual pay structure for all of our employees. Diversity, inclusion, and training. Provide education to all employees on the importance of anti-racism, anti-oppression work, and fostering an inclusive workplace culture. And one of the things that's also very, very good is get a trainer that also understands your community as well. And a lot of folks don't recognize that. They usually throw something on the wall and they said, okay, that person's really, really good enough. But the reality is you need to make sure that you also do your due diligence in terms of examining or looking at references of these individuals and actually calling the organizations to make sure that this type of trainer will work out for you. This flexible
references.
I'm sorry, Sonia, I didn't.
You're checking those references.
That's right. That's right. Flexible work arrangements, offering flexibility in work hours and remote work options to accommodate diverse needs and lifestyles. Now, obviously, you had said that earlier, Sonia, you can't accommodate everybody on that, but there are some other items that you can do that I had said earlier that can actually offer a culture of DEI. And so it isn't always going to be the case where flexible work arrangements will happen, because you're right. Somebody who is housekeeping or doing janitorial work will need to go to work. They need to be present at work. A front desk person needs to be at work, right?
Those client-facing positions, and I always try to think of it as the position and not the person. I mean, we do need to consider the person, but if you're customer-facing, have a customer-facing job, you need to be where your clients are. We had somebody who asked a question earlier about that, and I also want to go back and just say quick that you're not suggesting posting individual people's salary. You're talking about posting
structure,
position, and pay structure.
Correct.
So I just wanted to clarify that for our attendees.
So in Washington State, we're required now, whenever we advertise, to make sure that we give the minimum and the maximum, the actual range of the pay structure. And with that, I mean, it's easy to find out where individual salaries are. So why not just open up the salary structure range for all individuals? No, not for every single person. Yeah, that would be too controversial. That wouldn't be good.
Right. And I think that takes away, I think when there's the initial thought or suggestion, it's like, I don't want to post my salary, or I don't want to post Bob's salary, or I don't want to post Irwin's or Evan's, but it's the range and the position, not the person's name and not their actual salary.
Correct.
So I want to address this. Somebody has said that they have some challenge with within their organization of not some employees who don't want to be in the field, and or they're wanting different work hours that don't obviously work for the position that they were hired to do. They've implemented a restorative Monday. I love that phrase. A restorative Monday, which is every other Monday they're off. What they're running into, and an 11% pay increase to cover their day off. But what they're running into is that people are taking PTO or calling out sick on Fridays. So they're on those Mondays that they have their restorative Monday. A lot of folks are calling in sick or taking PTO so that they have that 4-day weekend. And it's so the work is suffering, the clients are suffering. And of course, that's a conundrum. You know, how do you address that?
Right.
Of course, it's basic. You know,
right.
You got to address the exact issue, etc. But
yeah, and that can be addressed via HR too, right? I mean, that's the same way. That's the same way that happens when holidays come up. I mean, that's individuals will call in and so forth, the day before or the day after the holiday, and so that's no different from what was described. And if the trend continues where this individual, for instance, keeps calling in sick the day before or the day after, you have a trend there. So
right, and you don't want to punish the masses. If it's one or two people that are causing the issue, you address it with those one or two issues, and not with everybody. But a lot of organizations have a policy for their, like your example, the holidays, that if you call in sick or you take PTO, unplanned PTO before these holidays, there's some sort of consequence.
Right.
So there's more stuff, but I want you to be able to get your goodies in.
Yep. Thank you, Sonia. Bias-free recruitment, implementing blind recruitment process to minimize unconscious bias in hiring decisions. What I usually do before individuals go to hiring managers go to their interview sessions is to actually do a reminder. There's a couple of anti-bias type videos that is out on YouTube that's actually pretty good, and I send that to them, and I'll remind me, Sonia, and I'll send that link for you. And they listen to it for about 3 to 5 minutes, and it's a good type of review for individuals to make sure that they're in good mindset when they're starting their bias-free recruitment. Okay. Another example is the ERGs, establishing support networks for underrepresented groups within the organization as well as another example as well. Next. So supporting and developing the workforce, mentorship and programs. So this is pairing employees with mentors or sponsors who can provide guidance and advocate for their career advancement. Leadership development initiatives, providing training and development opportunities to prepare diverse talent for leadership roles. Employee feedback mechanisms, creating channels of employees to provide feedback on their experiences and suggest improvements to promote a culture of continuous improvement. Employee assistance programs, offering resources and support services to help employees navigate personal and professional challenges. By the way, with the EAP programs, there's a lot of very, very good EAP programs now that have a lot of DEI trainings as well. And so when folks don't have anywhere to turn to or don't have any contacts, the EAP groups usually will have certain types of very, very good trainers. And it may be something that folks want to take a look at as well. Recognition and rewards, recognizing and rewarding employees for their contributions to foster a culture of appreciation and belonging as well. Okay, next. So organizations who have yet to have an equity, diversity, and inclusion initiative. So some action items might be to recognize DEI, equity, diversity, and inclusion challenges prior to suggesting DEI anti-racist remedies. So do a DEI survey assessment. This is actually a really good tool to be able to use. And I would suggest that you guys have somebody from the outside do that. A lot of times what ends up happening is that when employers do this on their own, there's a trust issue that's going on. And usually, just like when you do your engagement surveys or employee satisfaction surveys, it's usually best practice to have a third-party person do it rather than somebody from in-house.
Right.
Go ahead, Sonia.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah. Okay. Ask around for the right DEI consultant. Again, reference. Make sure that you actually, again, do your due diligence to make sure that you're getting the right person. Always assess inputs, but don't forget the outcomes as well. Allow those engaged in the work to shape the budget for it as well. Okay. Next.
I want to quickly say, I believe we have this was supposed to be a 60-minute. We are obviously going over, we've had wonderful engagement, and Irwin has really wonderful content to share. We understand those of you that may need to log off. This is recorded, I believe, so people can finish the session at their own pace. So, Irwin, please continue.
Okay. So education and training. This is an equity, diversity, and inclusion initiative. Okay. Providing comprehensive training and education programs to all employees to increase awareness of racism, bias, and privilege. This may include workshops, seminars, and online courses on topics such as systemic racism, microaggression, and allyship. For the education and training, providing comprehensive training and education programs to all employees to increase awareness of racism, bias, and privilege. This may include workshops, seminars, and online courses again. Diverse representation, we talked about that earlier. Actively seeking to increase representation of racially diverse individuals at all levels of the organization. Safe reporting mechanisms as well, establishing confidential and accessible reporting mechanisms for employees to report instances of racism, discrimination, and harassment. Community engagement, engaging the local communities and organizations to build partnership, support anti-racist initiatives, and address systemic issues of racism and inequality beyond the workplace. Okay. Next. Okay, so transitioning from a traditional HR mindset to a people and equity mindset is crucial for building a diverse, inclusive, and high-performing organization. By implementing equitable policies, practices, and supporting the development of our workforce, we can create a culture where all employees feel valued, respected, and empowered to succeed. Next. So lastly, salamat, that's Tagalog for thank you. Discussion on cultivating a culture of equity within your organization. I encourage you all to do that. And if folks have any questions, would love to answer them as best I can.
We've got some wonderful stuff here, and thank you for those of you who have corrected us. We did set this for 90 minutes.
Right.
Yay! So we have some time, and boy, there are questions for you.
Okay.
Gosh, okay, so somebody was saying, and I've tried to answer some of your questions just to let y'all know. I'm not sure if you were able to see my responses, but let's read some of these off since we have a moment.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. One organization says we have a fairly small organization. This is relating back to posting salary ranges.
Okay.
We have a small organization and the position and range is pretty close to listing the person's name. Any advice for balancing transparency and privacy? So my response, and please, Irwin, what I had said was, you may be able to group, take the organization as a whole and break it into maybe 3 or 5 groups. Maybe you have program staff, you have administrative staff, and perhaps they're, and maybe you list those positions within a salary range. So it might be quite broad. But that way, if you are small, let's say there's 25 or 30 of you, you may be able to group into like positions and then post it that way. So.
Yeah, that would be a good suggestion, Sonia. You group them by families of positions and so forth. That's actually a really good thing to address that with. Well, a lot of people also don't understand is that a lot of this information is already public in terms of the 990s. Folks can access that and actually see the 5 highest paid individuals within the organization. So, if employees are understand this process and that it is already public in terms of the highest paid individuals.
True.
Plus, depending on the state that you're in, like the state of Washington, because it is required for you to put in the range, it's easier to do that than in other states. But I could see that dilemma with a smaller organization, and I like what Sonia said in terms of grouping them by families and so forth.
Thank you. All right, a lot of folks have actually asked, they don't have anything currently. What, and one attendee has actually said, my organization is excited to do this. They've asked me to set up a DE&I program. What is the very first thing they should do?
I think they should have a heart-to-heart conversation with all of the leadership team members and the board to make sure that there is actual commitment to do it. I've turned down a couple of organizations to consult with in the past because they wanted to check the box. And this work is not about checking the box. This work is a full commitment to making sure that you actually want to make these changes within your organization and have an impact within your own community. And that should be the first thing, is assess your leadership and then also your board members that there is a real commitment to this work. And once you get that, usually it does take for the leadership team to basically make sure that they sponsor this wholeheartedly and not just half what. And because a lot of times if you do it half what, it's not going to go anywhere. And a lot of times what also happens is they hire somebody right away, and what you end up doing is actually harming that employee to do all of the DEI work on their own, and they end up quitting, and you end up traumatizing that individual as well. So I would always say start out with the commitment of the leadership team. And there are some questions out there. There's some organizations. I'll also send that to Sonia as well after this presentation so that folks can access it, but it does start out with the leadership team.
So what I hear is maybe this person should go and have that conversation with leadership to gauge commitment. And for me, it would also be, what do they think this might look like? What are they wanting to see? What are the expectations for this? So that you have clarity from what they're looking for.
Right.
That would
Right.
be my thing, is I want to know, well, what exactly do you mean?
Right.
I'm excited to do this. I'm raring to go. This is going to be great. But what do you mean by this? What are you expecting? What do you envision?
Yeah, and I would urge you also to check with the community as well. And, how do we make sure that we're creating this community that allows for you all to have easier access towards the services that we provide? That's a really good question to ask. And then a lot of times, don't be discouraged, because you're going to have some individuals within your organization that's going to say, well, we already do that. HR already takes a look at making sure that there's no discrimination practices and so forth. Yes, that's true, but this isn't just, you need to go beyond what the federal requirements are. You need to go beyond what the state requirements are, because that's what the community needs.
Well, and I think one of the things that I hear, because we talk to folks all over the country, thousands of nonprofits, we are very fortunate. But I hear, so why is this so important? I believe that nobody should be discriminated against. We should respect everybody and their beliefs and etc. But I think it goes far deeper than that, and looking at, like you started out with, looking at the past. Let's look at what, where we've been. Think about your car. You've got a rear view mirror that's about this big, but your windscreen, is much bigger. So you can see, you've got a bigger picture of where you're going, but it's important to know where you've come from so that you can actually move forward. Let's see, we've got questions. What are some of the best methods to check with the community to make sure services are relevant and useful to them? Great question. And when you say community, are you talking about the community work or the community outside of the workplace?
It's the communities that you serve is what we're talking about here. Okay. And of course, there's also the communities that you're trying to impact within your organization. And I talk in terms of that as well. But in terms of access, when you have a large, for instance, let's say healthcare organizations, and they have a large East African population, large Asian Pacific Islander population, large Latinx population. Are we actually in those communities that we serve? Or are we just, hey, we're here, come experience our services? No, I mean, I think that's the wrong way of doing community work. The right way of doing community work is making sure that that community actually trusts us. And so are we actually joining their community events? Are we actually talking to their community leaders? Do we have, not just talking with them, but do you actually have a built-in relationship with these community members? And a lot of times the answer to that for larger organizations is no. And what I say to that is it's too bad, because what you can do is develop those community members to be someday maybe working for your organization. Okay. And so you have a ready pipeline, employment pipeline that allows you to serve your community a lot better when you have individuals, and you hear this all the time. Somebody, for instance, who looks like me, who talks like me, I feel more at home, and I feel that they can serve me a lot better if organizations provide those types of services.
Great. All right, so here's one. I feel I have been the victim of a failed DEI approach at a previous employer. How would you encourage HR professionals who find themselves in the regions of the country where DEI work is vastly misunderstood? How do you break through the red tape and that mindset when you have a passion for DEI work, but your employer isn't prioritizing the work?
Right. Yeah, they see that as a separate work, right? And so, yeah, and that's real difficult. That's a real difficult situation to be in. I know some states have disallowed DEI type trainings and so forth, and so it's really too bad that that's happening. It's been politicized quite a bit, and it's really sad to hear that. I would encourage you not to get discouraged on it because I believe that in order for folks to really understand and create possibilities, and also making sure that all of these items that's happening in various communities, especially the marginalized communities, you know, I'll give you a story. Sorry, I'm big with stories, Sonia, and I know we only have like a few minutes. So I was having a bad day, same exact example that this person just mentioned, and just kept running into barriers, no after no after no, on various types of trainings, and I was getting very, very discouraged. And I happened to mention that in the group setting, and this one African American woman who I'm very, very good friends with to this day, who I considered a mentor and is considered an institution in Seattle area. And she looks at me and she says, "Irwin, you've only been doing this for 5 years. I've been doing this for over 25 years. I can't afford for you to quit. You need to keep moving." You know, and so that was very, very encouraging. And it's like, yeah, you know what? She's right. You know, and it really, you know, the job really, what I tried to say is that the job really is not to train, it's to inspire individuals and about DEI. And when you look at it in that form, then it isn't really about work. It's about making sure that we help those that are very, very marginalized in the communities to really create opportunities for them. So that's the way I look at things, Sonia. And I think if you don't give up, you make sure that you try to always allow for yourself to be inspired. Then I think you're going to keep that going.
So lead by example.
Yes, lead by example. Be inspired.
What is one thing somebody could do where, again, wherever they are in the country, where it's misunderstood, the whole concept is misunderstood. So what is one thing this person could do to perhaps start educating or working towards opening up somebody's view, an organizational view? What's one thing?
I think what I would say to that is, what are you very, very good at? Okay. And then ask yourself, you know, what are some issues here that can help this community? Okay. And do that. And, you know, and I think it starts with one thing. The hardest part about doing this work is that when people learn it and people actually internalize it, what happens is that they don't do anything about it. And that's why I always ask them, well, now that you know this, what are you going to do about it?
Right. Okay, so one of the things I was going to add is, you know, we talked early on about taking a look, you know, perhaps having a simple, when we were talking about tools and how to approach certain things, doing that Excel spreadsheet. Take a look at within your organization with that Excel spreadsheet, your separations. And do you notice a pattern? Disciplinary situations, hiring, you know, even just the visual look around the organization, what do you see? And then start asking questions, gentle questions to start at least opening the eyes. Now, somebody else has a question about, from a board perspective, we've got 2 minutes of scheduled time left. So Irwin, how would you encourage a board to become involved in DEI? And this person has said that our board does not have any policies, and I'm assuming regarding DEI, and then lets the organization lead. Is that okay?
I think that the one thing you can do with board members is, one, do your homework first about all of the work that you all do as an organization, and then pick off some areas from the marginalized community that you could do better as an organization. And then ask yourself this, and also the board, these are certain items that we have shortcomings on, and we'd like to improve them. And whether it be access or improvement, for instance, of services, then recognizing that allows for board to be able to support that a little bit more if they have those hard facts in front of them. Because a lot of folks don't know that these are issues that are happening within your organization. They join your board for a reason.
Right.
And so they want to contribute as much as they can. And so that's a way to do it.
We have one final question, and I think it's it's a good one to end on. It's going to be difficult.
Okay.
But what if at the staff level, the perception is that DEI efforts is actually creating more of a divide within the organization and perhaps instilling some racism?
Mm-hmm.
How can HR respond to that? How can the leaders in the organization respond?
Okay. So what I would say is that, directly ask them, how is it being divisive? Okay. Or are we actually looking at full history rather than limited history that's been told this whole time? And, one of the best things that we've ever done in an organization is rewriting what the history was for an organization, not based on how it was written from 20, 30 years ago from a white perspective, but do it from the marginalized community perspective, rewriting that. And I know that we, different organizations, have sent out various flyers regarding their organization, but doing that exercise actually helps you question and allows you for a little bit more ammunition to be able to answer these questions appropriately with your staff. That, look, we've been doing it this way for a long time. The reality is, this is how it should have been. If an organization has existed since the 1800s, late 1800s, for instance, hey, guess what? We weren't always practicing DEI because Native Americans were not included to have voting rights. Women were not had rights to vote. All of these types of issues can be shared.
Right, and I think it's Irwin has talked about how this has become politicized, and that is not what we want this to be. And we've been very careful because we know that DEI is still a touchy subject in many communities and organizations, families, etc. So while it sounds like you've got some issues within this one organization, starting with I think those questions, it's like, okay, well, can you explain what you mean by racism? What's the divide that you're seeing or feeling now? And sometimes having those difficult conversations, they're difficult, they're hard, but how we ask them and how we have that conversation, we need to have it with empathy and with curiosity. And it's not about feeling guilty because you're one race or another or religion, or it's about trying to understand somebody else's perspective. Any parting words?
No, just be empathetic the whole time, and you know, make sure that when you're talking with individuals, you still have that respect and dignity happening throughout the whole time.
Great. Irwin, thank you so much. For those of you who are interested in certification, please fill out the survey that will come in an email after we close this all down. Irwin is going to send me some tools and tips and tricks that we talked about throughout. If you are interested in those, please don't hesitate to send us an email. Irwin, do you want to give your contact information if people are looking for a consultant?
Sure. It's again, my name is Irwin Batara, and my email is LAKAYB. There it is. This is actually my what do you call it, website, but my email itself is lakayb@outlook.com.
Great. So anyway, thank you so much. You can reach out to him, you can reach out to us, and we thank you for your time and your amazing questions. And thank you, Irwin, for leading us through this and helping us better understand how we can contribute. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.